Welcome to LJG Sports. Thank you, Atlanta Hawks. Coming from a Spurs fan as myself, and I'm sure all the other Spurs fans are thankful to the Hawks tonight for losing the last playing game and ensuring that we get 2 lottery picks in this upcoming draft. Now, I won't say it was the best perfect night for the Spurs fans. Obviously, the Hawks lost, so we get another lottery pick. We're getting their pick either way. We are now ensured that it's a top 14 pick, though. The thing that is not perfect about tonight that would have really, put the cherry on the top is that the Mavericks lost to the Grizzlies. And it was important because if the Grizzlies had lost, they would have had the best record of all the non-playoff teams. So they would be automatically the 14th pick or the 14th lottery odds, basically. Instead, that is now with the Hawks and the Kings who have the same record. And I believe it's like basically a 50-50 chance on who gets the 13-14 lottery odds. So instead of if the Grizzlies had lost, we would have had the 13-12 lottery odds. Instead, we're getting the 13-14. So not much of a difference, but it would have been nice, just to get as close to moving up as possible. But what this means is that the Spurs they're getting 2 lottery picks. This is good. Bad news for the Hawks. I do want to talk about the game a little bit. So if you want to skip forward to like maybe the last 3 minutes of the video, that's where I'll talk about the implications of the odds for the San Antonio Spurs. But before I talk about that, let me talk about the game real quick. So I watched most of this game between the Hawks and the Heat. I watched about half, I would say, of the Grizzlies and Mavs. I want to talk about both, mainly the Hawks and Heat because I watched that one mainly. I watched the beginning of it. I watched the first half in full. It felt like the Heat were mainly in control. They got off to a quick 10-0 start. The Hawks looked very just dysfunctional on offense early. They weren't hitting shots. They were really struggling from three, especially early. And despite that, the Hawks' defensive effort and intensity kept them in that game. It was only like 10 points, 10-point lead for the Heat in the first half, when it could have been honestly much more, considering how bad the Hawks' offense was. Skip to the third quarter. Hawks make a little bit of a run to where they almost take the lead. I believe they got it to where they're only down by 2. The Heat then extended their lead back to almost 10. It was back and forth, and then in the fourth quarter, the Hawks actually took the lead, I believe with like 5 minutes left in the fourth. They got us to the point where they're up by 6, I believe. And at that point, the Heat called a timeout. I was like, oh gosh, I'm about to make a video today about how it's a sad day to be a Spurs fan. It's not the result we were looking for, but lo and behold, the Heat come back. They send it to overtime. So both teams were making some tough shots, especially I feel like Tyler Hero in the fourth quarter made some crucial shots. A step back, fadeaway, mid-range, another one on the baseline. But he, unfortunately, I guess it doesn't matter at this point because they won anyway. But it was to the point where it was, I believe, under 24 seconds. The Heat were up by 1. And the Hawks fouled the Heat because they didn't have much time left. They fouled Tyler Hero. That was good for the Heat because he's their best free throw shooter. He made the first, missed the second. Trae Young ends up making the layup, sends it to overtime, and in overtime, the Heat just take over. There was a play that if you watch that game I'm going to talk about, and you know what I'm talking about if you watch the game, where Davion Mitchell, it's where the Heat are up by like 6 at this point with like 3 minutes left, I believe. And it's come to the point where the Hawks have been struggling, the Heat have been clicking. It was a big possession. Davion Mitchell, who just locked in the overtime, had Trae Young on him, and the shot clock was winding down. And Davion Mitchell kind of just steps back to the 3 nonchalantly, and Trae Young just lets him shoot it. They've been trash talking all night, and I guess it was just like a tactic of just let him do it. I personally did not like it, seeing that from Trae Young. As a Hawks fan, it's like, are you even trying? And I know Davion Mitchell actually ended up missing the 3-pointer, but as Trae Young nonchalantly just let him shoot the 3, he nonchalantly tried to get the rebound, and Davion Mitchell rushed to the ball and got the rebound from him, passed it back out, and then it ended up getting back to Davion Mitchell, and he ended up hitting a 3 at the end of the shot clock. At that point, it was like 2.5 minutes left, and the Heat were up by almost 10 again. At that point, I basically knew it was over, and the Heat ended up winning that game. in the grand scheme of things for the Hawks and Heat, I don't think it matters much. I don't think the Hawks or Heat were going to do anything against the Cavs anyway. I do think the Hawks maybe had a better chance of picking up a game or two against the Cavs, because I do think the Cavs are liable to lose one or two in this first series. But I just don't see either of them getting out of the first round anyway. So, because of that, now we have the other game I want to talk about, the Mavs and Grizzlies. I watched, I'd say about half of this game. I was in and out. Good game by AD, but when he was getting banged up, when he ever had to go to the bench, it's just they had no offense coming from anywhere. PJ Washington really struggled. You could see it in his body language. He was getting frustrated on the defensive end, on getting like rebounds. He was shoving. He had 5 fouls. He had a terrible game. I don't know if he ended up with 0 points, but on a team where you lose Kyrie Irving, arguably your best player, probably your second best player ever since Anthony Davis came, and it's just they really needed some offensive firepower, especially when Anthony Davis went to the bench and they weren't going through him because Klay Thompson was struggling for a bit. He did okay, but PJ Washington really needed to be there for them. And overall, I'd say the Grizzlies were the better team, and the better team did win. I felt like I really wanted the Mavericks to go through. I felt like they had a unique shot against the Thunder, and since they have those two bigs, whether it's Davis and Gafford or Davis and Lively, so I thought that would pose some problems for the Thunder. More so than the Grizzlies. I think the Grizzlies, like I said, are a better team, but I don't see them doing anything against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, with that said and with that out of the way, we get to the Spurs lottery odds and how it affects what happens for the Spurs and their chances of getting a high pick, or what chances they get for getting any pick in this upcoming draft. So we're getting 2 lottery picks, and if you go to tankathon.com, you can see like the updated percentage for the Spurs for their Hawks pick to get go top 4, for their own pick to go top 4. You can see all those percentages, how far they can fall back. Basically, what it comes down to, the Spurs more than likely will get the 14th pick or 13th pick, depending on how the 50-50 works with the Sacramento and Atlanta picks. And interestingly enough, actually, the Kings pick is top 12 protected. Actually, I don't think that makes any difference because they can only go 13, 14. So that's going to be to the Hawks anyway. So that's interesting. But so Spurs should get 13 or 14 with the Hawks pick, and then more than likely will be 8, 9, maybe 7, maybe 10, but more than likely we'll get the 8th or 9th pick. So, like I said, it doesn't really, in the grand scheme of things, mean that much. It does mean we get 2 lottery picks, which can help for sure. Just for the sake of fun, I did a simulation on Tankathon, a sim lottery. You can hit that button and it will simulate a lottery and it'll show what picks go where. So I did this 50 times actually. Funny enough, well, let's talk about the Hawks pick first. So in 50 simulations, the Hawks pick that the Spurs own, the lottery pick, was the 14th pick 49 times, assuming they're going to be the 14th pick rather than the Kings. So 49 times, about 98% of the time, it was the 13th or 14th pick, what it would be. Once, it was the 3rd pick. So, like I said, that pick has a really low chance of getting to the top 4, but it has a chance. I believe the way the lottery works on draft lottery night, if you don't hear the Hawks pick or the Spurs pick at 14 or 13, it is automatically going to be a top 4 pick. So that's kind of cool. We're going to pray for that on draft lottery night. I might do maybe a live or a reaction on that day. I'm pretty new to video, so I'm not sure I even know how to do a live, but we'll figure it out. And then I believe that's May 12th or something. So we still got a couple of weeks. And then the Spurs pick, in 50 simulations, it was the first number 1 overall pick 5 times, which is actually not bad. And that's better odds than what the lottery actually says for the Spurs. I don't know if I got lucky on the simulations or the Spurs got lucky, but yeah, 5 times out of 50, it was the number 1 overall pick, which is actually really good. But most of the time, it was the 8th pick and the 9th pick. And then once it was the 10th pick also. It wasn't ever the 7th pick, which is interesting. But yeah, so more than likely it will be the 8th or ninth for the Spurs, and then the 14th or 13th for the Hawks pick. That will be ours. But again, it's nice to have those two lottery picks just for positioning, and then also there is always that chance, that dream scenario of where the Spurs, imagine if they got two top four picks, excuse me. Imagine if that happened. Imagine if the Atlanta pick ends up being the 14th lottery odds, and we hear the first 14th and 13th pick, and it's not the Spurs or the Hawks pick. You're gassed because you know a top four pick is going to San Antonio. And then it gets up to the 8, 9, 10, 10, 9, 8, 7, and it's not the Spurs again, and you know they're going to be in the top four. And it's like, you got two top four picks. That would be the dream scenario. Obviously, that is very unlikely to happen. We got lucky with the Spurs getting the first overall pick in 2023, getting Victor. That was the one that really counted. Last year, the Hawks got super lucky getting the first overall pick. So it's more than likely not going to happen, but one can dream. If you're a Spurs fan, let me know if you watched the Hawks and Heat game. Let me know what you agree, disagree with, or any thoughts you had on that game. And then same thing with the lottery odds. What would be your two dream prospects if the Spurs got two top four picks? I'd be really interested to know down in the comments. I might do a video on that actually in the future just for fun.